Hello and welcome. It has been some time since you have seen me like this, but I am back again here to talk about a new topic. Now, of course, with this being the weekend release of Spiral from the book of Saw, it is officially, of course, though, the ninth entry in the Saw franchise, though this one is more so a spin-off, a reboot, if you would. Of course, the word has been tossed around for many, many years now in the film realm. But yeah, we are here now with this new entry starring Chris Rock, of all people, and Samuel L. Jackson. Who would have thought, right? But yeah, uh, it's a quite an interesting turn of events for this franchise for someone myself who is a fan. Now I can understand for some people who may or may not be a fan. I completely get that. I myself, though, have been a fan since the very beginning. Every Halloween, every October, I would go out and I would see these films and I would just have a good old time, as you should. And yeah, it's grown on me quite a bit over the years. I've met stars from the franchise, I've been to many conventions and talked to many people, and I would say in a lot of ways it is the franchise that more or less brought me into the horror realm more than any other franchise because it took a while for horror to truly grow on me the way that it has. But really, it's this franchise that made me the man I am today. Which is pretty funny. As many would, if you've seen the movies, of course, it's all about Jigsaw and his life lessons for these people. And whether or not, of course, you buy into that philosophy, I just think it's kind of funny to think that this film franchise, Jigsaw, that man, he turned my life around. He turned me into a horror fan because without horror, I was clearly a lost soul. As you see, we like to have a good sense of humor here on this channel. But anyway, all of that aside, this is just really going into my thoughts and to really give you the idea as to why I feel this franchise is something quite unique when it comes to this genre. Now, with Saw for me, I find it rather unique in the sense that how very episodic it is. In a genre where consistency, quite honestly, is very lackluster. You look at your average Friday the 13th film and you will realize rather quickly how little continuity matters in a franchise like that, where nothing really seems to truly make great sense. Even the likes of A Nightmare on Elm Street, A Halloween, all these franchises, these major franchises, truly have very muddled storytelling, to say the least. Not a whole lot will make sense from film to film to film. Saw, on the other hand, is quite unique in that sense, is because of its continuity and just how tight it actually is. How, as I said, it's very episodic. It's like a TV show that you watch weekly. It's just you see one Saw film, you wait till next year to actually see the next episode to see how the season basically is going to play out. And that's one of the reasons as to why I find it quite fascinating and one of the aspects of it that I enjoy. Now, of course, many can argue maybe certain plot elements here or there, like with anything just about. It'd be like, well, does this really make sense? Does that really make sense? But as a whole, I would say it holds itself pretty well to that standard as to actually being consistent with his actors. If it doesn't get a certain actor back, then they may not use them. They may not even bother. That all the actors are consistent, their storylines for the most part are consistent, and that is truly something special because with a lot of films, I mean, let's be real here, especially with so much retconning and all this, and it does have its share of retcons, but really more or less trying to fill in gaps that they feel like that they may want to fill in. Where other things just say like, fuck that, we're not even gonna bother. The soft films, you can even argue to a fault, actually try to hold on to their continuity, which is what I enjoy about it. I do enjoy that aspect. Another thing is a pretty big one for me, and that is the man himself, John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, also known as Tobin Bell in reality. I feel that this man simply does not get the credit he deserves. He adds a certain level of gravitas to this franchise that I don't think he gets the credit for. Again, you could say what you will about the character and his philosophy, which I would also say that you have characters in the franchise that actually do question his philosophy. So it's not like that's never happened. It's not like, oh, you have to buy into his philosophy. No, it's a man who happens to be doing what he's doing. He believes that it's the thing to do, and yeah, he gets challenged on it from time to time, particularly in Saws 2 and 3. I would say in the latter half of the series is where they more or less kind of made him the hero, so to speak, because of the Hoffman character, of course, being more or less a villain, a slasher who's someone who just completely threw the philosophy out the window. It's like, fuck that, I'm doing my own thing. But I'm going on a tangent now. But yes, Tobin Bell, that man is a treasure. I do feel that gentleman right there could potentially be an Oscar caliber actor. And you could be like, a Saw movie with an Oscar caliber actor. I mean, they've had Danny Glover, great actor, really, really great actor, of course, in the original film. And now where we are with Spiral getting the likes of a Sam Jackson, it's quite interesting. But that's more or less, again, beside the point. But Tobin Bell, he really adds a certain level to these films that may not work nearly as well. As a matter of fact, they would not work nearly as well if not for what he brings to that role. Again, you don't have to buy into his philosophy. It's not like, oh yeah, it's legitimately life or death situation. Like he's preaching at you. This is what you have to listen to. No, it's what he brings to it, to where you buy into that character and to who he is, especially as the series goes on and on and on. You get all these flashbacks, you fill in the gaps here and there. And it really does add a lot of interesting weight to his backstory and who that character is. And whether you disagree with it or not, Tobin Bell, man, that guy is so brilliant. I've had the chance to hear him talk at a Q&A. I've met the man myself. Great guy. And he really does bring his all into this role. He loves the role. He truly believes in doing the character justice. And especially when you look at a film like Saw 6, you look at the one scene between him and the insurance guy. That scene is just so well done, so late in the series. It's just that, like, that scene in isolation, just by itself, just watching these two actors talk to one another. And the first half of the conversation, he's very much John Kramer. He's the guy who has been diagnosed with cancer. He's just trying to figure things out. He's just talking like a normal guy. And then you have the gentleman telling him, no, like, this is not the way you should be doing this. It's not going to work. Or, talking about his insurance claims and this and that. And then that's when it kind of starts to elevate a little bit. And that's when you start to leak into the Jigsaw side of him that's just now starting to become. And that scene is just so well done. And of course, even the political statement aside of insurance, and like I said, like what should be done morally versus profit wise, that alone is just a great scene. And this guy, again, so late in the series for the sixth entry, which another franchise like a Friday the 13th, where typically the sixth entry in a franchise is very much where things start to go downhill. In this instance, it is actually one of the better ones. Many Saw fans would claim that Saw 6 may be one of the top 3 films in the franchise. And for me personally, that is the case. It's because of scenes like this. It's because of the weight that's added to it, to where you do see more of the human side of the John Kramer character. And other scenes like back in Saw 2, between him and Eric Matthews, Donnie Wahlberg's character. And it's just such good stuff. Again, because a character like him, he's throwing it in his face. It's just like, yeah, putting a gun to someone's head and forcing them to pull the trigger is still murder and this and that. So like I said, you have areas where he's been challenged on his philosophy. But that's where some of the brilliance is of this franchise. Again, for some people, it is the traps. And yes, that's the meat and potatoes for a lot of people, a lot of general audiences, and a lot of people who may not be fans who just look at it as that. I'm like, yeah, sure. In the earlier films, it was more or less about kind of character and situations, more or less. As it went on, of course, it became more about, the gore aspect, which I get. It's a horror film at the end of the day. They came out every year. That's what they expect people to want to see. But at the same time, though, they always did try to keep that nature of it just being a tightly wound story in terms of all these characters and their motivations. And for better or worse, regardless, they always stuck to that, and that's what I've always appreciated about it. Again, in this genre, lack of consistency is such a huge thing, but in this franchise, consistency was one of the many aspects to it that I enjoyed and I could appreciate. And so, yeah, just moments like that between characters, he just adds so much interesting moments. You can listen to this guy just read the phone book to you for 2.5 hours. I mean, that character, the cadence he brings to it, that voice, it is absolutely brilliant. And again, just one of those huge aspects to it that adds something so much more than what I feel people give it credit for. Now, moving on to the next thing, it's not as big or as important of something as the actual character, but the music. Oh, the music. Charlie Clouser's score that plays at the end of each film is so fucking brilliant. Another thing that I feel is just so underrated. That theme is phenomenal. When I heard it for the first time at the end of that original film back in 2004, it sticks with you. It just absolutely sticks with you. I could dare say it may be the best horror theme of all time. Like the Halloween's, I would say that theme is right up. I would say these two are right up there for different reasons. Of course, different flavors. They're not quite the same thing. And they both have their own unique vibe to them, but something about the Saw theme that works so well, not just even with a Saw film, for any sort of intense moment of culmination of things happening. You could use this for a variety of films and it could work just as much. It doesn't just, it has that sense where, yeah, you hear it, you just know it's Saw, but at the same time, it has such a vibe about it to where you could use it for other films. And that's what's so brilliant about it. It's so intense. The twist, especially when the twist actually works, when it just hits you, and that music, it just adds such an extra layer to it where I'm blown away every single time. I could listen to that theme all day long and never get tired of it. And where each film has its own unique version of it too. It's not just the same theme over and over again. It's the same tune, but it has different pitches to it. It'll have its own unique version through each film. Each one has its own, and every single one of them is just as good as the previous one. They all he does something a little bit different each and every time, to where you listen to them all back to back, you might get a slightly different feeling for the next one than you did with the previous one. For instance, you listen to the original and it's just so intense and just so, getting caught up in that moment, to where, man, this is like all this is just like this information is just flooding at you, and you're like the Adam character witnessing him getting stuck in this situation where he's trapped in there for life, and it's just so intense and kind of scary. But then other ones where you get to like a Saw 6 where things have kind of gone off the rails a bit. Hoffman, he's just killing everybody. He's not about the philosophy. He doesn't care. And where Jigsaw is kind of seen as more, they kind of twist it somewhat to like the anti-hero territory, to where it's not just about the games, but it's about also stopping Hoffman. And when you hear the theme of that one start to kick in, it's when he's in the reverse bear trap, and it's a certain sense of intensity. Like, okay, this theme, it gives you a sense of having to stop, the bad guy, and it's not as much of like it doesn't strike you in that sense of being kind of scared, but more or less just like, oh, things are ramping up now, we are taking this guy down. And then it ends the way that it does, with him ripping it off and his jaws all just, each one again just gives you something different. And it's so fast, especially even in Saw 3. You can say what you will about that one, because even as a Saw fan, I was rather disappointed in a lot of ways. But that one as well is also quite good, where it's like the anti-hero stopping the villain, and it's more of an epic feeling where stopping the bad guy, it's not about the intensity or like the scare factor in that way, but like we're wrapping things up, it's more epic now. It's just like, yeah, get them type of feeling, you know what I mean? That's the brilliance of it. Each theme just has its own feeling each and every time, and it's just so underrated. And that's, I wish that music would get more of the credit that it deserved. But yeah, anyway, those are three main aspects of this series as to why like I'm such a big fan of it. You don't have to be a fan, of course. It's not about that. I can understand everyone has their flavors. That it's not for everyone. It absolutely is not. And of course, even as a fan, I wish there were some things done better here, some things done better there. I wish they had played themselves a bit more straight and narrow in the later films, and not trying to focus on the gore so much. But there's only really about 2 or 3 films I'm probably not a huge fan of. But for the most part, I would say Saw 3D was the one I was most disappointed in, especially being the culmination of everything. And it's the cheapest looking one. There's just so many things I wish they had done differently. But with Spiral, I'm hearing mixed things. It's pretty decent. It's more or less a lot of the same stuff, but at the same time goes back to some of the basics. And so I am most curious to be seeing that this evening with my girlfriend, and we will have a review sometime later on. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, but you don't have to. You have your free will to do what you please. But I am just here to try to entertain and hopefully have you along for that ride. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.